Good morning and welcome, everybody. I see we've got lots of people online already. Thank you for joining us on the Sanocare Breath of Hope presentation. Just to remind everybody to turn off their microphones while we're having the presentation. I see there's some that don't have them off. And if you want to rewatch the presentation, you can go on the YouTube, Sanocare Breath of Hope, to find the recording of this and many other talks. So our presenter today, I don't know if he needs any introduction, but it's Dr. Emmanuel Taban. He is a highly qualified registered pulmonologist and also holds a European Diploma in adult respiratory medicine. To imagine that he actually only started uninterrupted schooling at the age of 17 is quite amazing. Dr. Taban emerged with a novel technique of mucus extraction from the lungs in the midst of COVID-19, and he's the first in the world to undertake this intricate procedure at the time. So he's got many other accolades, but we're all on the edges of our seats to hear this presentation.
Thank you, Leanne, and I really appreciate. Thank you guys for everybody who wake up this morning to join us for this presentation. And this presentation really was meant to be non-biased, and it's really to present evidence against the use of ivermectin currently in South Africa and obviously from Latin America, and to look at what it really indication evidence, what is really the drug for. Because I have quite a few patients that came from the peripheral hospital that have used them for parapneumonia, parainfluenza pneumonia, for bacterial infection. They obviously medicine being used for a lot of things for them with no previous indication. But let's start. So the title of my talk, it's really called Ivermectin, the Devil, MESSHIAH, or the Desperate Search for Miracles. So welcome. In this talk, we will explore ivermectin in details from its discovery and mechanism of action to approved indications, safety, and controversy. So we're going to look at ivermectin in the following context: background and discovery, pharmacology and mechanism of action, approved human indication and dosing, pharmacokinetics and drug interactions, evidence summaries as antiparasitic efficacy, evidence summaries as ivermectin for COVID-19 in vitro besides clinical, safety and adverse effect, overdose and veterinarian misuse, controversies, misinformation, and legal matters, conclusion and references. So let's go back to the ivermectin. Ivermectin was a rock star. Okay, in 1970, scientist Omora, he's a microbiologist. So what he was doing that he was actually going to try to collect bacteria from the soil. So one day he went to one of the golf club, and there was trees, and then she collected some of the sample soil. And actually, that's when he actually discovered the bacteria, which you name it, streptomycin. And together, of course, in 1970, with the Campbell, who was also a scientist at Merck Laboratories, then they actually discovered the ivermectin, a natural compound from soil bacteria in Japan. So it saw a remarkable effect against parasitic worms. Then ivermectin, in 1981, ivermectin, a derivative of ivermectin, is first introduced as a veterinary medicine to convert animal parasites. Then 1987, ivermectin is approved for human use, leading to donation program to convert river blindness. 2015, Omora and Campbell are awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine for their discoveries, which have radically lowered the incidence of river blindness and lymphatic filariasis. So this is really Prof. Caban and Omora. That's Mr. Omora, and then Campbell. And was the CEO of Milk Company. And these photos was taken before when actually about a few years ago. Let's look at mechanism of action. Pharmacology and mechanism. Ivermectin is primarily an antiparasitic action. Its antiparasitic actions targets the nervous system of invertebrates. It binds to glutamic gate chloride channels, which are unique to those organisms or mammals. Ivermectin binds to the nerve and the muscle cells or the parasites. And then then this, of course, once it binds, it opens the chloride channels, disrupting the nerve signals on the parasite body. So then it was approved, human approval indications. Of course, the US FDA, Food Drug Administration, has approved the ivermectin to treat specific conditions caused by parasitic worm, as well as tropical formulation for external usage. So those was strongyloids, which is quite very common in Central Africa as infection caused by type of roundworms, and then river blindness, an infection caused by parasitic worm transmitted by black fleas, which I'll discuss later. And then, of course, the parasitic becomes paralyzed and eventually actually dies. If you look at once they consume these bugs, the ivermectin. So here is much more detail. So you got microcyclic lactin that bind glutamic gate chloride channel in invertebrates, increase chloride influx. Then you lead to hyperpolarization, paralysis, and deaths of parasites. Also interact with the GABA and galactic receptor at high concentration, propose immunomodulatory and potential antiviral effect in vivo. So approved human indications, of course, river blindness was a mass drug administration programs, and then strongyloids. These are oral ivermectin, and then of course head lysis, and also but not FDA or WHO approved for COVID-19 treatment or prevention. Dosing and formulation, topical oral antiparasitic dose 150 to 200 microgram, single dose for many indications. Dosing varies by indications. Topical 1% creams, 0.5% lotion for lice, and veterinarian formulation differ substantially, so it's not the same. So higher or prolonged dose have been studied experimental but carry increased risk of toxicity. So the topical oral dose for parasitic infections is again 150 to 200 micrograms per kilogram as a single dose. Topical formulation include creams and lotions. Veterinary product exists at very different concentration and should never be used in humans. Pharmacokinetic interactions. Ivermectin is highly lipophilic, widely distributed in tissue, but largely excluded from the CNS, from the central nervous system by P-glycoprotein. It is metabolized by cytochromic CYP3A4. So the drug interactions are possible. Its half-life is about 12 to 36 hours. Food increase its absorption. And one of the common drugs that we use during COVID-19 was azithromycin. So you could imagine the combination of the two. So the half-life, it's about 12 to 36 hours in humans. Food increase absorption. Efficacy and antiparasitic evidence. The strongest evidence for ivermectin lies in its antiparasitic use. It has transformed public health program targeting river blindness. Randomized controlled trials confirm its efficacy against the roundworms, lice, and other parasites. Ivermectin and COVID-19 in vitro besides clinical trials. The question that who actually come with the concept that ivermectin has evidence against viral infections. And the evidence really was come out from the in vitro study where they took ivermectin and tested against the virus, and then they test against antiviral activities. So the antiviral activity observed at macromolecular concern not achievable for safety in human. I'll show you a graph, okay? And of course, lab studies show ivermectin inhibits SARS-CoV-2 replication in cell cultures, but at concentration far beyond safety human levels. Okay, so early small trials were inconsistent and methodologically weak. Larger, high-quality randomized controlled trials and systemic reviews show no clinical benefit for COVID-19. So who and World Health Organization, of course, and IDASA recommend ivermectin for only within the clinical trials. The FDA has warned strongly against self-medication, especially with bacterial formulations. Then there was a Cochrane Labs 2022 review found no reliable evidence of for benefits. And the safety and adverse effect, of course, the common side effects of ivermectins are dizziness, nausea, diarrhea, rash, topical, such as local irritations. And then the serious but rare are neurological deficit, hypotension, and liver enzymes elevations. And I think the liver enzymes elevations are more common with those with the animal kind of formulation, not the human. And I think that I highlighted it during 2022, 2021. And I think it's become a viral and become one of the major debate issues. Overdose of veteran products misuse can cause severe toxicity and hospitalization that we have seen, and that actually increased a lot of death during COVID-19, Delta wave, and drug interaction with CYP3A4 inhibitors, certain antiviral macrolides, which, as from I've seen, is one of the perfect examples, may increase levels and toxic levels. Special population precautions. Use in children is based on weight adjustment dosing. Limited safety data exists for pregnancy and breastfeeding. Patients with genetic P glycoprotein defects or CNS condition may face higher risk of neurotoxicity. Now, ivermectin as a messiah. Once ivermectin was actually a messiah, let's see how. All right, so focus. The fight against river blindness. Ivermectin's most celebrated success is its roles in the near eradication of the river blindness. This parasitic disease has devastated communities for centuries, primarily in Africa, and that was probably Central Africa and Senegal. How it works, the disease is caused by parasitic worms spread by black fly bites. The adult worms produce millions of microscopic larvae that migrate throughout the body. When the larva dies in the eyes, they cause inflammation that destroys optic tissue, leading to irreversible blindness. Ivermectin works by killing the larva, which prevent blindness and dramatically reduce transmission of the parasite. It does not kill the adult worm, so repeated doses are necessary. So, in 1987, the manufacturer Merck & Co. launched a landmark program to donate ivermectin for as long as needed to eliminate river blindness. It stands as one of the most successful public-private health partnerships in history. The program has delivered billions of treatment, preventing hundreds of thousands of cases of blindness and allowed vast regions of farmland to be reclaimed. And that's why ivermectin was a messiah. I'll tell you why. And that's the black flies. And this is actually photos that was done in 1987 to 90s about the river blindness. And you could look at the eyes. This person blind, this is a young girl from Senegal. Again, you could see she's blind, she can't see. And that's because of the river blindness. And this is a child fooling his father in the village because the father couldn't see. Okay, and this is a man who had also river blindness and disfiguration of the skin because of the river blindness. COVID-19. Evidence summary. Ivermectin for COVID-19. The discussion around ivermectin for COVID-19 stemmed from early laboratory studies. So there was a study when COVID-19 obviously was discovered in 2020. And then some group actually start studying to find that actually COVID-19 has some efficacy, ivermectin has efficacy against COVID-19. However, clinical evidence has not supported this initial finding. The key issue is the vast difference between the drug concentration needed in lab dish besides what can be safely achieved in the human body. So if you look at this graph, this is really a maximum safety concentration of the ivermectin in the lung that become less toxic. And if you use ivermectin to treat COVID-19 in the lungs, you need about 50 times the dosage for actually to kill the virus in the lung. And that particular human being will be dead even before from the COVID because of the toxic event of ivermectin. Okay, so this chart just illustrates that concentration of ivermectin required to inhibit such COVID-19 in lab setting in over 50 times higher than the maximum safety concentration achieved in human lungs with a standard oral dose. Such high dose will be toxic and the human will not even survive it. And that's the reality, evidence-based. So I just wanted to be fair. What are the evidence that actually trigger people to go viral about the use of the ivermectin during COVID-19? I want to show you there was evidence that, of course, there was some. I just want to give summary of supportive research evidence during the pandemic. So there's one of the prominent physician, Paul Mark, that everybody probably know. He was actually educated in Baragwana in South Africa. And then moved to New York. Okay, he was a co-founder of the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. Most of the undercovers knows that. And what happened that he actually promoted ivermectin for COVID-19, which was not authorized by FDA or WHO. So early study, of course, he cited quite a few studies that I'm going to show you. And then, of course, he's quite well known in the medical circles. He's a guy who actually come with the idea that vitamin C plus thiamine can be used for treatment of septic shock, which later was withdrawn and found that was actually fabricated. Then his paper was retracted due to misreported mortality and lack of robust evidence. And then, of course, as a result, he actually was stripped of all his credentials in USA, currently does not practice. So these are the early observation studies, which was done in 2020. These initial reports from South America, India, and Egypt suggest reduced mortality and fast recovery for COVID-19. The trial was non-randomized, small sample size, and limit control. And then that's what really generated early excitement about the use of ivermectin. And then there was an INCOL study also, which was supposed to be a multi-center retrospective study in Florida hospital in the US, and which the finding was reported low mortality in hospitalized patients treated with ivermectin, 15 besides 25%. Again, the study was limited by observational design and confounder. And then Latin America reports there was a mass distribution program in Peru during COVID-19 and Bolivia associated with reduced COVID-19. So again, the problem that there was no confirmation really to show the cause and confounding factors, because nobody knows. There was lockdown, there was testing, nobody knows actually whether those drugs were distributed or not, what really happened. But we all know that majority of young people, COVID-19, they'll have mild symptoms. And those people were included as part of the study that they recovered from ivermectin. While people who are very, very sick, most of them really dies. Randomized controlled trial from India. So Ahmed and al., a Bangladesh double-blind randomized controlled trial show faster viral clearance with ivermectin. But of note, in Bangladesh, they actually can't test the viral load of COVID-19 during that time. So it was just really kind of, they made it up. And then Craig et al. Combination of ivermectin and doxycycline show symptomatic benefits. So you could imagine the signs of nausea. Trial obtained small underpower and variable endpoint. So meta-analysis supporting ivermectin, of course, Brand et al. Report reduced risk of infection, hospitalization, and death. Hill et al. Early 2021 version suggests positive signal when include all available randomized controlled trial. Then meta-analysis were often influenced by inclusion of low quality of late retractation data. And that's really how people actually thought ivermectin was the savior. And the rationale for the use of ivermectin according to those particular individuals was really based on the antiviral in vivo inhibition of SARS-CoV-2 replication requires super therapeutic concentration, what I previously saw. And then they also claimed that ivermectin have anti-inflammatory, which suppress cytokine production and may reduce hyperinflammation, which there's some truth in that because most of those patients which were seen in a hospital who come with the COVID-19, most of them have low CRP, low IL-6, but they're very sick and they die within 24 hours. And then also they thought there was a potential to reduce viral entry by impotent also. Again, no evidence found. So why ivermectin and COVID-19 misleading and retracted trials? So the key now, the outbreak of that actually that there was misleading misleading information about ivermectin come out on the trial that was done actually in Egypt. Was the largest study, which was initially made news headline, was a larger Egypt study, claimed 90% mortality reduction with ivermectin. That was in 2021. Then of course, now they found that he was the professor found was accused of data fabrication, and then plagiarism and ethical conduct. Data set unverified, patient possible inverted, so was no patient, they just inverted patient or misassigned. And the meta-analysis once removed benefit signal vanished and was withdrawn in 2021 July. And that was probably the breakpoint that actually that ivermectin was put to rest. And then toxicology report or pilot trial 2021 claimed benefit of ivermectin for COVID-19 treatment. Against was retracted, inadequate methodological data and poor statistical analysis. Conclusion unsupported by underlying data, omitted well-known controversies. Hill et al. Meta-analysis 21, meta-analysis of randomized controlled trial include the Egypt trial study and other later discredited, so benefit when poor quality study included. Once corrected, effect lost significancy. Original publication also was retracted. Prevention trial and meta-analysis, several prevention randomized controlled trials had major flaws, high risk of bias or potential frauds. One prevention trial judged potential fraudulent, others methodologically weakened also. When lower quality study removed, preventive effect also disappear. What other flawed trials, of course, issues identifies are duplicated patient data. So if there are two patients that make about 4, 5, 10, then there was identical growth in proper numbers. The problem with, the problem with these publications is that because most people, the brain does not remember when you jump between the lie and the truth. It will get messed up. So your lie becomes your truth and the truth become a lie. So it actually exposes you your own brain weakness. And that was the issue with the COVID-19 studies. And then, of course, there was missing ethics approval. Most of them were not really ethically been approved. And then most of them non-random allocation and then pluralism tax. Some early positive reports later retracted or questions and demonstrated how poor quality study distort the evidence. So what does that mean? Patterns of misleading evidence, of course, depends on one or two larger unreliable studies, lack of transparencies, with refusal to share raw data, methodological errors, randomization, blinding, and statistical flaws. And publication bias are positive but poor studies, poor cited than rigorous negative trials. Controversy and misinformation during COVID-19 pandemic, ivermectin become politicized. Some early studies suggesting benefits were later retracted. These fuel misinformations and widespread off-label use. Legal and regulatory battles follow in many countries. Now, strong evidence against ivermectin use in bacteria and viral. When you do a Google search or Cochrane Library search, you find nothing. There was lack of activity. Ivermectin is anti-parasitic, no proven antiviral or antibacterial mechanism in humans. Clinical trials, WHO and also FDA and others, no evidence of benefit in COVID-19 or other viral infections. Again, you can't use ivermectin to treat a common cold. No. Risk, misuse, delays, affected therapy. People who use ivermectin, they tend to present to hospital late with increased mortality, and most of these patients actually complicate. And also not forgetting about adverse effects, including neurotoxic and liver injury. In South Africa, most people tend to use the animal formulation than actually the human formulation. Global consensus used only for parasitic disease. So if you got parasite disease, no issues. You can use ivermectin, but not recommended for viral or bacterial or infections such as bacterial infection. So in conclusion, ivermectin has no proven role in bacterial or viral infection. Its use is unsupported and potentially harmful. Bottom line, there's no scientific evidence supporting the use of ivermectin in treating or preventing common flu or cancer. Major health authorities consistently confirm that ivermectin is only effective against specific parasite infection. Again, not all parasite, and its misuse for viral or cancer treatment is unsupported, unsafe, potentially harmful. Conclusion, ivermectin is a proven antiparasitic with a decade of safe, effective use for specific indications, which is parasites. Laboratory antiviral signals do not translate into clear clinical benefit for COVID-19 high quality trials. So whatever you see on the labs is not equal that can be safely used on the clinical ground. Major health authorities do not recommend ivermectin for COVID-19 outside clinical trials. Clinicians should follow guidelines recommendations and avoid veterinarian formulation. More highly quality research may refine specific recommendation. It will come with time. And I quote, when it comes to flu, viruses, and cancer, praise is safer than ivermectin. So better to bend your knee before God than to place false hope in unproven cure. And these are my references. You have the concrete review, ivermectin preventive and treating COVID-19, FDA, WHO, PubMed, and Mayo Clinic. Thank you. I hope that addressed all your concern. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I think that was very helpful because I think a lot of people just don't know what to believe and what not to believe and what is the evidence-based medicine. Somebody's got a hand up, I think. Or is it not?
No, there's one hand.
Anybody?
You can actually ask, just put your mic on and speak.
You click on that hand, see what it is.
Click on the hand?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no, you put it off now.
Okay. Yeah, so it is what it is.
Anybody have any comments?
I think yes. There's a question here from Bill.
Hi.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. No, I just wanted to say that there is a question in the chat.
In the chat. Okay.
Yes, I saw. There's a question here. Can ivermectin be taken prophylactically for river blindness for people working within Central Africa and Senegal? Yeah, I haven't talked about it, but yes, I think probably yes. I think if you got exposure, I think you can use it. But I think probably that's why they said you have to reuse it all the time, because imagine you take it, if you take all the time, I mean, again, you know, it's a single dose, so it can't. I think it's win off because it's a kind of a parasitic infection. So remember, it's the larva that travel through your bloodstream and end up in retina. So it's when it gets stuck there, that's when it dies and causes inflammation. So I don't think that you can take prophylactic treatment, but perhaps the area where there's high incident may be into eradication. So I think probably the answer is no.
It's interesting that they discovered that ivermectin, I think in 2020,
Yeah.
a group of Australian researchers discovered, and they tested many things and discovered ivermectin.
No, it's in Japan.
Well, no, they discovered ivermectin, but the Australians then tested things for COVID in 2020, and they in vitro they found.
Yeah, the in vitro from Australia, of course, they found out everything because it was really, you know what, I would always say that, because it's just a small dose.
Yes.
That actually in vitro, that's so like there was activities. But then, of course, when you now do calculation for human, you need like 50 times instead of 200 microgram. You could say you almost did like
appropriate level.
yes.
I also think people translated it works for parasite, maybe it works for virus, to it works for anything.
Yes.
So, I mean, I've seen patients, even I saw a gentleman with pancreatic cancer who was also
Taking ivermectin.
just for, like again, to maybe it's a Messiah, let me try like a Hail Mary, anything.
Yeah.
To treat something that's untreatable.
Yeah, but also, I mean, if you look at, I remember in 2021, there were quite a few professors, I mean, from different universities. The more notable was University of Victoria, the University of KwaZulu-Natal and Medunsa, where they actually stood up and they really advocated. I remember some of the patients actually ended with us in midstream and completely found that there was no evidence. So sometimes somebody just believed in it. I don't know who. Or whatever evidence and what they're seeing, the problem with COVID-19 is that if you're really less than 50-year-old and you have no comorbidities, it's just a mild disease. It doesn't cause any problems. And I think people just attribute to that. And the same people, of course, who are anti-vaccine are the people currently, I mean, if you go most of the farmlands in South Africa, like Middelburg, Delmas, and all those areas, people with flu, they tend to go and use ivermectin. But we've forgotten that with flu, within 5 days, you recover by yourself, without any treatment.
You take ivermectin or not.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think that basically that ivermectin, people then Googled and found this
study.
It's also the psychology of a kind of desperate situation where,
But unfortunately, the problem was that ivermectin was cheap.
Yes.
And then the anti-vaxxers then said, well, we're suppressing the data against ivermectin to promote the expensive
vaccines. Yeah.
Exactly. I think they just want to give, because they're those really against vaccine. And I think that's when Paul Mar unfortunately become that kind of person. His credential, but again, I've seen for it, you do pay price for it. So.
Yeah.
There's another guy, Paul Offord, I think, that has done a lot of research and also discussed the disadvantages of using ivermectin on podcasts. Interesting that Susan Monarez, the head of the CDC, has resigned because RFK told her that she must approve all this new childhood vaccine schedules without proper evidence, and she refused. And she says she's not going to compromise her integrity and say resign.
I think that's always the right thing to do.
I think the tide is turning against RFK for his anti-vaccine attitude.
It's crazy. Yeah. All right. If there's no question, I think we're gonna close the meeting and say thank you guys and thanks for joining us. This is just really more information to make sure that our community. Our community stays safe and from misinformation, and that's really the idea. The idea is not to tarnish the image, but rather to promote good clinical, guidance, and also to guide our community against harm from unnecessary use of medication that will not work. And if there's new information available, we'll make sure that's available for the public, and so they can be able to use safely. For now, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.